What is this living nightmare? And why do kids love it so much?
A certain pizza-loving mouse is fast approaching his 50th birthday, and it's been a road full of twists and turns to get there. Let's take a look at the rise and fall of Chuck E. Cheese.
Follow me to fun, everyone's invited.
Hard times.
Hey kids, maybe you heard, we've been downsized.
For generations, the mere mention of Chuck E. Cheese has conjured plenty of happy feelings and wistful memories. Much like the rides and games that have defined the Chuck E. Cheese experience, the company itself has seen its share of ups and downs over its many decades. And in recent years, it's been mostly down. Once the undisputed champion of the pizza restaurant/entertainment center design that it pioneered, Chuck E. Cheese has seen some hard times, even tougher than hitting a 100-pointer in skee-ball. Financial stresses mean Chuck E. Cheese is actively seeking its third buyout in company history as of December 2023. But going as far back as 2010, the prior decade plus has been a struggle for the once mighty mouse.
Dumb money.
Tumbling profits forced the company to recover losses by repurchasing 2.5 million shares of its stock from investors that year. But it wasn't much help. Despite investing $94 million into store improvements throughout 2011, like opening 4 new locations and remodeling, expanding, and enhancing 180 existing outlets, business was still falling. However, company-wide revenue was still dropping by year-end. Struggles continued and sales declined in 7 of 9 straight quarters going into 2014, and the company was forced to sell. New owners would pay $1.3 billion for Chuck E.'s empire, as well as its assumed debts. The relief wouldn't last, and Chuck E.'s accounting books would soon look like Swiss cheese once again.
Who disturbs my slumber?
Buyout, bankruptcy, buyout.
Bankruptcy!
With the 2014 sale being the second one for Chuck E. Cheese in 3 decades, it wouldn't be that easy to get things back on track. The company had struggled to maintain profitability even though the surrounding economy was steady. So when the global rough waters hit in 2020, Chuck E. Cheese simply couldn't stay afloat. After all, if they had it tough during the best of times, the worst of times would certainly turn out to be disastrous. With the base of its business centered around in-person gaming activities and pizza that had to be ordered in, the sudden wave of people not going outside eliminated what was left of Chuck E.'s dwindling business. After all, a game of arcade basketball can't just be ordered for curbside pickup.
I'd rather die being there because there's so many germs, kids running around.
By June 2020, they voluntarily filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, with the company's CEO stating it would help, quote, overcome the financial strain the company was wrestling with, including an estimated $1 billion of debt. Just 6 months later, the company emerged from bankruptcy in December, but was forced to pass company ownership to its creditors in exchange for wiping more than $700 million of Chuck E. Cheese's debts from the books. Seemingly approaching some level of stabilization for the first time in decades, another sale is once again the company's strategy, with rumors circulating since late 2023 of a new buyout. Sources have suggested the company might put itself up for auction and pursue a third sale in its near half-century history, suggesting they might get while the getting is good. Insiders suggest that Chuck E. expects to bring in more than $1 billion of gross revenue this year and would expect to receive a matching billion-dollar price in a sale. Bad news beverages.
I'm getting another beer. You want one?
So how did things get so bad in the first place? Chuck E.'s hard times are largely due to its lopsided business model, or more specifically, the lopsided peak hours. The hours of profitability have traditionally skewed 80-20, meaning just 1/5 of its operating hours accounted for most of the money-making. Weekends were always the big winner for Chuck E. since it catered to families and kids, and the rest of the week was usually hindered by the Monday to Friday 9 to 5 schedules and school and work curfews. So that meant each building was nearly a ghost town outside of those busy weekend days. In an attempt to draw the after-work crowd that might want to unwind over an arcade game or two, in the mid-2010s, Chuck E. Cheese decided to court the adult crowd by offering adult beverages. That's right, why not do some boozing next to the ball pit? Chuck E.'s has always carried alcohol for adults dealing with screaming kids and birthday noisemakers, but they never really made a point of pushing it with advertising. Even today, day, alcoholic beverages are available at select franchises that choose to serve it. And while the selection varies by location, the one thing that doesn't vary is the strictly enforced 2-drink maximum. That rule wasn't always followed, though, as some investigative journalism in February 2015 from CBS's Inside Edition proved.
I drank all of those days. I drank.
Locations were actively serving 4 or more drinks to adult customers, and in some cases advising them on how to swap photo ID with other adults to skirt the drink limit rules. But the extra alcohol wound up creating some problems, and violent incidents at Chuck E. Cheese had been escalating as early as 2006. Bad headlines became the norm in national news, including a backlot brawl in Oklahoma that involved 18 adult males in 2013, a fistfight in Fort Myers, Florida in 2014, a violent beer-fueled bash between several sets of parents at a Miami-Dade, Florida location in 2016, and an incident with the arrest of a Miller Lite-loving mother at a California Chuck E. Cheese in 2017. Even as recently as 2022, 3 women and a single adult male were arrested at a location in Brandon, Florida after a gunshot was fired and a car was driven into the building's exterior after a Michelob-fueled melee. To avoid more bad press and calm wary parents, 3 Chuck E. Cheeses in Milwaukee voluntarily surrendered their liquor licenses in 2016 in a bid to win back customers and ensure families a safe and fun experience.
I'll be right back.
You forgot something.
I'm the one that takes her to Chuck E. Cheese and her first words are mommy.
This is another ding to Chuck E. Cheese's reputation about it not being a safe place for kids, even if it wasn't directly the fault of the franchise. Urban legends have long persisted of Chuck E. Cheese's restaurants being a haven for child kidnapping or even human trafficking. And while that of course isn't true, it didn't do much to sway the court of public opinion. While some spots tried to woo the adult evening crowd, certain locations went the opposite route and chose to institute rules where adults can't enter the restaurant by themselves unless they show up with a kid, to prevent even the perception that questionable characters might be hanging out at a kid-centric establishment alone. Locations typically function with a hand stamp system that prevents kids from leaving without the same blacklight number as the adult they're going out the door with. But it's not a foolproof way to keep an eye on things. Headlines that told of children going missing during a visit to Chuck E. Cheese only bolstered parental paranoia, as stories of kids simply being left behind by their parents ran rampant on a national scale. These include a 2012 Houston, Texas case of a mother of 10 only bringing 9 kids home and not realizing it until the next morning. Another incident that year saw 2 Maryland parents forget their daughter at a Chuck E. Cheese establishment and not realize it until they saw her photo on the evening news later that night. And a 2018 case that saw a Florida mother remember to grab the leftover pizza but forget to bring home her 2-year-old son. Whether it was a simple misunderstanding, the fault of the parent, a problem child, or simply the inescapable fear of child predators, eventually Chuck E. Cheese built a reputation as at least being a place too hectic for even the most attentive adults or well-behaved kids to keep track of each other at all times. And some customers decided it was best to just avoid the whole hassle.
So a kid has to wait in line and order a kid's meal.
Big game hunting. With a reputation to build, the company has swung its focus on marketing itself as nostalgic for adults just as much as being fun for kids. The long-running Chuck E. slogan of "Where a kid can be a kid" has instant association with all kinds of children's shenanigans. But as the old saying goes, there's a kid in all of us. And as announced in January of this year, a whole bunch of adults will get to entertain their inner child on a big scale. Currently in the research and development phase, a new live-action game show called Chuck E. Cheese Arcade Heroes will put full-sized adults in large-sized situations, having pairs of contestants competing in live-action oversized arcade games.
How do you do, fellow kids?
Air hockey, pinball, alley roller, and even a gigantic human claw are all on the docket for a chance to cash in your tickets at a giant replica of the classic Chuck E. Cheese prize wall. Likely hoping the project will broaden the company portfolio and up its value for an eventual upcoming buyout, this is the brand's first entry into what it calls unscripted and televised entertainment content. The potential series is in the works with production company Magical Elves, who have worked on hits like Bravo's Top Chef, Netflix's Sugar Rush, and Nat Geo's remake of Brain Games.
Are you not entertained!
First time here? Well, forget about whack-a-mole, whack that subscribe button and become an official BabbleTopper. Thank not-so-humble beginnings.
Nobody compares to Atari.
Chuck E.'s long-standing relationship with gaming makes perfect sense since the company itself was founded by one half of the duo that founded the Atari video game company. Atari was started in 1972 by Ted Dabney and Nolan Bushnell, breaking ground in the early years of interactive electronic entertainment with home computers, stand-up arcade games, and OG video game consoles like Pong and the flagship Atari 2600. Inspired by the animatronic robots at Disneyland's Country Bear Jamboree, Bushnell dreamt of combining arcade-style midway games with a pizza parlor and the somewhat live entertainment from a then state-of-the-art animatronic band. Following through, Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater opened its first location in 1977. That first location in San Jose, California led to a total of 7 spots by the end of 1979, with 6 across the Golden State and 1 more in Nevada.
They don't play the same games here as they do at them regular casinos.
The success led to the immediate idea of franchising to expand the brand outside of the West Coast, and Nolan signed an exclusive franchising deal with businessman Robert Brock to open Pizza Time theaters across the rest of the country. But Brock soon decided he preferred the more advanced animatronic technique of developer Aaron Fletcher, and the pair split with Nolan Bushnell to open their own version called Showbiz Pizza Place in 1980. While the two companies with identical concepts feuded with back-and-forth lawsuits about contract breaches, intellectual property, and misrepresentation, it was Chuck E. who eventually blinked first. Struggling to compete, Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater had lost $15 million by 1983 and filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy just 1 year later in 1984. By 1985, they were bought out by the competition at Showbiz Pizza Place, and the fate of our favorite pizza-munching mouse was hanging in the balance.
Where a kid can be a kid.
From surviving to thriving.
Survive!
Once Showbiz merged with the Mouse, both sides agreed to continue operations separately under their original names and structure. But after a few years, that idea just seemed impractical. By September of 1990, Showbiz, as the parent company of both, was spending $9 million a year on marketing and advertising between the two brands, which today would be about $21 million, and decided it would be more cost-effective to focus on one. The company's arcade/pizza combination restaurants were on top of the world at the time, and a total of 262 outlets were being operated across the country, 137 of which were under the Showbiz Pizza Place banner, and the remaining 125 flying the flag of Chuck E. Cheese. The company itself was on a roll, with 18 straight quarters of sales increases, and each restaurant averaging per-location sales numbers approaching $1.2 million a year, which made them the biggest per-unit sales generators in the entire pizza industry.
Let's watch some crazy stuff, yo!
But streamlining to keep that train rolling meant something had to give, so Showbiz Pizza Place and their animatronic Rock-a-Fire Explosion Band eventually retired, with all restaurants under the Showbiz umbrella officially converting to Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza by 1992. Rebounding from being caught in the mousetrap of bankruptcy and a buyout just a few years earlier, Chuck E. Cheese had officially become the face that ran the place.
Pizza time.
Around the world.
Hello, everybody. I'm Chucky. I'm coming to Dubai.
The new united front of the Chuck E. concept had conquered its American home and then set its sights on bringing its food and fun concept to the rest of the world. Today, the company has almost 600 operational restaurants spread across 47 states and has even entered 18 foreign nations across the globe. But it wasn't an easy road to get there. Earlier attempts at franchise expansion hadn't lasted long, with the first being in Australia in 1981 under the name Charlie Cheese's Pizza Playhouse.
Let's put another shrimp on the barbie.
Other attempts included opening 2 Pizza Time theaters in Singapore and Hong Kong that were thwarted by the company's first bankruptcy. A pair of stores in Puerto Rico wouldn't survive past 1985, and one location in France that was so short-lived it put enough of a scare into the company to cancel a forthcoming restaurant in England shortly after. With none of those attempts surviving the decade, the 1990s brought a little luck with a location opening in Chile in 1994. And there are over a dozen still still there today. However, the time, money, and effort put into trying to put Chuck E into places he wouldn't succeed only ended up adding to the company's struggles.
But it's been a great 40 years, so no hard feelings.
Often imitated, never duplicated.
You can try, but you'll never catch me.
The model of Chuck E and showbiz may have pioneered and perfected the concept of simultaneous food and gaming, but they weren't without competition or copycats. The old saying goes that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and if that's the case, Chuck E. Cheese himself would blush at all the imitators that have come and gone. With showbiz and Chuck E. Cheese on top of their game in the 1980s, a few others decided that animatronic animals with a side of gaming was the path to success for their restaurants too. Captain Andy's Rivertown sprung up in 1981 in Maryland and California, and a firefighting dog was the mascot leading the animatronic characters. A year later in 1982, Major Magic's All-Star Pizza Review had an animatronic marching band with restaurants in Ohio and Michigan. When 1984 rolled around, Gadget's restaurants opened in Ohio and Maryland and were unique for featuring licensed Warner Brothers Looney Tunes characters and voices as their animatronic characters.
What's up, Doc? What's cooking?
And 1 year after that, in 1985, Sioux Falls, South Dakota became home to Gigglebee's restaurant, whose main attraction was an animatronic bicycle-riding coyote named Wilbur that rolled around the dining room and delivered pizzas and birthday cakes to tables of happy kids. Still, none of them had the staying power of Chuck E. Cheese or showbiz, and the chain reaction that created so many copycats eventually powered down, and most fizzled out before the end of the 1980s. The 1990s merger of the two brands might have cemented Chuck E. Cheese as the undisputed champion of the entertainment center, but other contenders emerged in the 90s to take a swing at things. Pizza Hut made a brief foray into having a tabletop arcade in some of their dining rooms, while Dave & Buster's tried to encroach on the grown-up games and food market with 10 nationwide locations by 1997. On the kiddie side, Discovery Zone's indoor playgrounds opened in 1989 and spent the upcoming decade trying to capitalize on the indoor gaming and activities part of the equation. And that competition spurred on a few changes in Chuck E. Cheese's strategy.
Hey kids, what's your favorite family fun place?
Totally Tubular.
A Give Mom a Break zone.
Countering the Chuck E. Cheese arcades with hands-on physical activity, Discovery Zone's indoor playgrounds were a hot ticket as the 1990s got rolling. DZ was up to 14 nationwide locations by the summer of 1991 and had another 20 franchises added on before the calendar turned to 1992. The indoor playground concept was actually very much inspired by the McDonald's Play Place, which had been around since the 1970s but didn't take its more modernized form of ball pits, crawl tubes, and slides until the late 1980s. Play places themselves were successful enough that by the fall of 1991, McDonald's opened spin-off locations called Leaps and Bounds that featured indoor playgrounds without the need to be attached to a full-sized physical McDonald's restaurant. But it just wasn't as successful as its traditional Golden Arches Play Place counterparts, and Leaps and Bounds folded into Discovery Zone just 4 years later in 1995. At that point, the ever-expanding Discovery Zone was taking a big chunk out of Chuck E. Cheese's business, and the company quickly pivoted.
I drink your milkshake.
After years of being copied in the marketplace, the company did a little dastardly doppelganger work of its own, inventing its own eerily similar ball pit and crawl tube indoor playground system that they dubbed Sky Tubes. Moving away from its familiar arcade-first fun was a risk, but it ended up paying off for Chuck E. Cheese when Discovery Zone entered bankruptcy twice in 1996 and 1999 before finally surrendering. 100 Discovery Zone locations abruptly closed, and those remaining were sold off and converted to Chuck E. Cheese's before the decade was out. For once, the mouse was on the winning side of a buyout.
Bazinga.
I smell a rat.
I knew we'd screwed up.
We've been referring to our pal Chuck E, whose actual full legal name is Charles Entertainment Cheese, as a mouse. But that wasn't always the case for the much-loved mascot. When Nolan Bushnell was piecing together his vision in 1977, he purchased a mascot costume from an amusement park convention in Orlando, originally envisioning a restaurant called Coyote Pizza. Upon closer inspection, though, Nolan had accidentally purchased a rat costume and was forced to pivot to a new creative branding strategy using a rat and the new name of Rick Rat's Pizza.
Did they change the name?
The rat mascot remained, but quickly landed on a different name, Chuck E. Cheese. But the name change alone wasn't quite family-friendly enough, and by 1993, Chuck E. officially changed from the unhygienic vermin infestation often associated with rats to a more palatable version of a different vermin that still allowed the company to keep the image and branding, a mouse. The slight tweak was enough to appease the marketing department, but it wouldn't be the last makeover for the eponymous character.
We've done something pretty magical here today.
Hey Mouse, say cheese.
Chuck E. Cheese, an East Coast rodent.
With the ups and downs in business over the tumultuous existence of the restaurant, the mascot that shares its name has gone through a few makeovers. Originally appearing in commercials with a New Jersey accent, bow tie, and a red derby hat, the swap to a mouse, coupled with the earlier move to convert all showbiz pizzas to Chuck E. Cheese's, brought a revamped image. Chuck E. switched to a yellow sweater and red baseball cap in the mid-90s before another wardrobe change in 1997 to a purple t-shirt and backward snapback hat and some very 1990s fingerless gloves and skateboard shorts. With business in a free fall by the 2010s, it was 2012 that brought the most radical revamp to the former rat.
What's wrong with him?
Can't you tell he's high on painkillers?
Going hatless for the first time in his then 35 years of existence, Chuck E. swapped out the short pants for a pair of casual blue jeans and started carrying an electric guitar to bring rock star flair to his business that was originally founded on animatronic animal musicians. Voiced in commercials by singer Jarrett Reddick from pop-punk rock band Bowling for Soup, the transition to Chuck E.'s rock and roll era unfortunately meant the curtain was finally closing on the original music show.
Nah, I've got rat stuff to do.
The show must go on.
Would you like us to sing you a special song?
Hell no.
The once cutting-edge animatronic shows were becoming a thing of a bygone era by the time Chuck E. had picked up an electric guitar in 2012. And 3 years later in 2015, the writing was on the wall and on the floor. The dance floor, that is. The former animatronic stage made way for the new Chuck E. Live stage at a few test locations, featuring a light-up dance mat, 6 video screens, a digital LCD birthday countdown clock, and LED displays, and was more interactive as a dance space for kids where they could interact with costumed Chuck E. mascots and characters. A runaway hit in its first 2 years of trials and testing, the company announced a wider rollout to 7 Chuck E. locations in 2017. That number had expanded to 80 restaurants by 2019, and by the early 2020s, they had replaced the animatronics set up by the hundreds, signaling the end of Chuck E. Cheese's once most defining characteristic.
No, you can't. Don't even try.
But you can't keep a good mouse down, and the company decided that, much like the Blues Brothers, they were getting the band back together. Announced in November 2023, Chuck E.'s original Munch's Make-Believe Band, featuring founding members Mr. Munch, Jasper T. Jowls, Helen Henney, and pizza chef Pasquale, will be moved into a permanent Las Vegas-style residency in Northridge, California, at one of the chain's longest-running restaurants, setting out to prove that old school is still cool.
We got a place, Dana, coming up here.
Don't forget the food.
I've been saying bad things about pineapple on pizza.
Lost in the glitz and excitement of giant tubes, LED dance floors, arcade games, both classic and electronic, singing animatronic robots, and costume critters, there's one constant that might just be the backbone of the business for almost 5 decades, the pizza. But like everything else around it, the pie at Chuck E. has been forced to change with the times to keep itself relevant. With the 2011 downturn, the company switched to having all pizzas feature freshly grated cheese and freshly made dough, which was enough to have Chuck E. Cheese's thin and crispy pepperoni pizza beat Pizza Hut's pepperoni in nationwide blind taste tests in 2015.
You can put as much cheese as you want.
Wooing 57% of testers, the company knew it was onto something and kept up the improvements. Today, the classic 5-meat, veggie, and supreme pizzas are still around, now available with gluten-free crust options next to the newly dubbed grown-up menu, with the additions of home-style barbecue, signature meatball, spicy Hawaiian, and spicy barbecue piggy pizzas. The upgraded menu has kept the adults happy and, at one point, was the only thing keeping the company from going out of business completely.
Oh my God!
Food-focused.
It's good?
The updated pizza recipes have been a major success, so much so that they've escaped from the walls of the entertainment centers where they were born and are coming to a family kitchen near you. In the summer of 2021, the company announced a deal with Kroger to have the supermarket exclusively carry frozen versions of Chuck E's famous pepperoni pizza and cheese pizza in the freezer aisle for retail purchase. And to sweeten the deal, each box includes a code for 250 e-tickets to be used at your next visit to an actual brick-and-mortar Chuck E. Cheese arcade location.
Impossible! I thought only Zenites could do that.
This isn't the first time the famous pies of Chef Pasquale, full name Pasquale P. Pie Plate in case you were wondering, were served outside the restaurant. The 2020s boom of curbside pickup and mobile app delivery left the locations empty, but kitchens busy, as Chuck E. started selling its pizza fare on delivery apps under the ghost kitchen name of Pasquale's Pizza and Wings. Some customers were upset and felt tricked into ordering from a children's play center instead of a local pizzeria, but the main point was it was the only money coming into the company at the time. The concept is still going strong today and has strangely become the steadiest part of the business, as Chuck E. Cheese once again enters uncertain futures ahead, with one more company sale on the horizon coming sooner rather than later.
No, I didn't try it. No, I obviously didn't try. Stop! Enough!
We're serving up great videos 24/7, so just tap or click on one of these other ones to keep watching.